Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial. Apple are continuing to incrementally update all of the applications in the iWork suite, adding some new and significant features. We've already covered all three of the applications in the iWork suite, Pages, Numbers and Keynote, and you can search for these using the tag iWork on the website or in the Screencasts Online apps. So rather than cover these apps again from scratch, I'm going to look at the most significant updates since the last tutorials. Let's make a start with Pages on the Mac, and rather than swapping back and forth between the Mac and the iOS version, I'll leave the changes in the iOS version until a later section. Now don't forget you can always navigate to the various sections by jumping to the chapter markings both on the Screencasts Online website and also in the Screencasts Online apps. One of the big changes in Pages is the ability to create interactive ePub books. And whilst not completely replacing iBooks Author, Pages now allows you to create industry-standard ePub books that can be published in iBooks. So let's start by having a look at Pages itself. So if I open Pages version 7, we'll go to New Document. And you will find within New Document there are some new templates. There are Books Portrait and Books Landscape. Now the primary difference is that the portrait books are really intended for text-heavy books, and the text will reflow through the document. You don't have to add pages in, just as you type, extra pages will be created, and the layout is very fluid, so when you look at the book in iBooks, you can actually, well, I'll demonstrate it to you, but you'll see that it's not a fixed layout, it's a very fluid layout. That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.